Hey guys, Chris here, we're giving Project Nerf. You've been asking for it, so, well, here it is. Let me show you how I did it. Alright guys, you've been asking for it, so here it is, the Adventure Force Spectrum. Let's see if we can work any magic with it. Let's do it. Alright guys, I've pulled the battery door off, and of course this thing takes 6 AA's, so we got a little extra space in here versus like a Strife, for example. And I've saved you the agony of pulling all the screws out. Now, big plus, go Adventure Force, it's all the screws are the same length, so it doesn't matter where they go back in the blaster. I think I've got them all out. Yep. Okay. Wow. Well, that just came apart a little too easy. So we've got 4 screws in the battery tray, which we're going to have to get loose. They're the same length as well, so that's awesome. I love it when the blasters are, all the screws are the same length. Just makes life so much easier. Wires in the way here. There we go. Get that out of the way. Okay, this is a really interesting mechanism. There's definitely some space in here. We'd like to try to convert this thing to full auto. But you can see the switch configuration is very different than your traditional Nerf blaster for the rev switch here. Lots of room in here to put a big one, so it shouldn't be a problem, but you can see what's going on there. So I'm going to see if I can lift that trigger out. There we go. Spring's still on there. So awesome. We have the return spring for the pusher. Which, wow, I'm not 100% exactly what's going on here. I think this squared edge is what actually pushes the dart. So if we put the mag in, it is indeed, okay, the top of this here is a keeper to keep the dart in line, and this bottom squared off edge here is what actually pushes the dart into the flywheels. And it works similar to a Strife mech, but yet at the same time, very different. So converting this to full auto ought to be an intriguing proposition here. One more screw here, big top hat screw for the trigger. Take it out. And then a few screws in this pusher mech. One on this lever. There we go. All those in there. There's all that out of it. There's a screw here where the safety switch is for the access door. Of course, that's coming out, so there we go there. Put that over there. The flywheel cage is a very simple cage. That being said, looks like there's lots of room in here for us to play. Even the screws in that are the same length as the body screws, which is just super cool. Get that out. There's a little green tab here at the point of my finger that the wires fit under that are gonna be a little bit of a pain, nothing too serious. If we can find a cutter. Ah, there we are. Sorry about that. We should be able to snip that off. There we go. And then just pull all of the electronics as a whole here. Okay, it's 130 motors. It's got the weird gate on the front of the flywheel cage, which no screws or anything. This is just rubber. It comes off. This top guide clicks in. Those are not dissimilar to standard Nerf flywheels, which from Adventure Force is interesting. They got a great motor retention thing going on here. These tabs slide in here, and then on the other side screw in the center. So we're going to take those screws out and just gut this thing to all heaven here. So there goes that. There we go. So you know, just kind of yank the wires off the battery tray, yank them off the flywheel cage. So the configuration of those cage screws, oh wow, that is so nice. They've got rubber bushings. Hopefully you can see them on camera. Right here on all the screw posts, and those are very squishy, like rubber or silicone, to insulate the cage to minimize vibration. And that is just so nice. Holy cow. And I mean, this is a $35 blaster, guys. I mean, you know, I mean, if it was an $80 blaster, you expect that. But out of a, you know, a budget blaster, that is so super cool. Gosh, you know, Dart Zone is, obviously they've been kicking butt for a while here, but holy crap, guys, this is super. So anyway, I'm going to kill the camera, play with a couple things, see if there's any prayer of converting this to full auto, and I'll get right back to you. Okay, as you can see, we've done a full tear down on this thing, and we're going to have our work cut out for us if we're going to convert to full auto here. So let's take a look. Okay, here is the stock pusher mechanism, which, let me hold it down here so you guys can see it. It kind of camouflages in against the green, but it rides like this. Right, and this is the piece right here at the end of my finger that actually pushes the dart. So, if we go to a strife style pusher mechanism, okay, it's going to have to sit all the way back here in the closed position. Okay, which means we're going to have to add a post, cut out some stuff here, which there's plenty of room to cut stuff out. That's not a big deal. But this post is going to have to go. Realistically, this one's going to have to go. And then up top, we've got to fit a gearbox. So these tabs right here and here at the end of my screwdriver are going to have to come out as well to square this area off in any hope of getting a gearbox in there to drive this pusher mechanism. So anyway, I'm going to get at that, and then I'll get back with you. Okay, so just to get started, there's a couple of things. This post had to be cut down. I had to cut this wall that way quite a bit. Cut this wall over a hair, get rid of this post, trim all of this nice and flat. And at this conjuncture, we just might be able to pull this little miracle off. So I've got a worker pusher, which is not my first pick. Probably an XSW would be better because the teeth are much longer on it. So let's grab that XSW pusher kit. You can see the difference in the teeth here, which is why I prefer XSW to worker. You get a lot more room to play with here. Okay, but all the way back, that's fine. And then all the way forward, see if I can find it. Here we go. This is the original pusher. So we gotta have to pull a little magic here. I originally slotted in here just like this, and slid forward to about there. So if I put my finger in it, where this would have stopped before, we need to get at least that much push out of our pusher kit, which the way I've trimmed it, we get that and a hair more. So we're good there. So you can see how I've got this floating. We're going to have a post in it right here for this thing to ride on. And then, forgive this one, it's got the worker gear on it. But where I've cut this nice and flat, we ought to have just enough room to squeeze our gearbox in. So I think we can pull this off with the XSW kit. The worker kit would be questionable. So anyway, we're going to proceed here. I'm going to try to get all this mounted up. I got to install my post and then do a few other things. But so that's the first step, is to put this post in where we need it to be so we can get this mounted nice and flush. And then make a mount for the gearbox and hopefully pull this off. So here we go. Alright, we needed a post. So what I've got here is a piece off of the regulator shell. It's like part of the grip, the foregrip on the regulator. And this post is stupid long, which is what we want. So we're going to cut this thing out as deep as we can get it, because we want as much as possible to put into our blaster. So if we set this thing about there, roughly where it's gonna be, give or take. Well, let's try to put this in. This post is gonna set right about there. Kind of sort of right in the, this had a cross shape. You can see where I've cut the material out, at least hopefully you can. Focus. Right. Here's the X. The post is going to set right there at the tip of the screwdriver, right in this cross section, give or take a little. So what we're going to do for the sake of testing is fire up the hot glue gun, put the post in there, see if we can get this thing to even remotely come close to setting right, and then we'll go from there. Alrighty, slight update. As you can see here, I've gutted everything along the top edge except this last post, so we only have a couple of screws in the top. But the reason being is because I have the sneaking suspicion that while in a strife, the gearbox sets like this, that we're going to have to flip this bad boy around and go this way. I don't want it to have lots of room to play with it. Okay, I just hot glued this post in. I did drill a little hole and put a screw in right there, which is a small price to pay to help hold that post down. But you can see that sets just about right, and it's sliding all the way up to here, so that will be plenty far enough for us to get the darts out. Even the height is pretty close. We will have to drill out the cap here to fit over this post because it doesn't quite fit, so I'll have to take a drill bit and rip this out a little bit. And what I intend to do, because the XSW is so smooth on this side, is build this up with epoxy putty so it's level with this this green part of the deck right here that I cut down, so that this has got something nice and solid to slide on, to rest on. Return spring, we can do a couple things with that. We can certainly go to a longer one. We may have to kind of customize it, but hook to here to straight to the back of the body where my finger's at, so it's going to be a long return spring. But fortunately, we don't have to have a lot of oomph on it, and there's just enough room, if we play with this, to scooch this gearbox in here. And you can see here, if we slide the pusher all the way forward to the post, so the gearbox is going to have to be about there, give or take. And that's why I gutted all of this region back here as well, is to have lots of room to play with my positioning on the gearbox. Because if you mess this up and this tooth, okay, doesn't let go of the pusher, it's just going to go zzz, and you're going to burn out your little pinion gear in your gearbox really quickly. So I think we've got most of the base work done. I'm going to start building this epoxy putty deck in here for the pusher to ride on, and get the spacer drilled out so that it will fit over our new post, and then we'll work on mounting the gearbox. Okay guys, made a little progress. As you can see, I made my epoxy putty block here, which I'll take all this apart so you can see it better in a minute. But the pusher rides quite nicely on it. Now this spring is one that I picked up, I want to say at True Value or Ace Hardware, and I actually have the packaging material. Hopefully you can read that. Alright, so it's extension spring, 5/16 by 1 1/8 by 0.2023 inches, or 7.94 millimeters by 28.58 millimeters by 0.6 millimeters. So hopefully you guys can see it, and it's quite nice. It works well. I don't think it's going to put too much tension on the gearbox. It stretches out pretty well. The only thing, this type of hook mechanism is a little bit different, but we'll we'll wrap that around, but it also gives us a little room to play. If we need to lengthen it up to slack it some, we can always open it and then rebend it and hook it back to our pusher arm. What we're probably going to do is put a little piece of plastic right here as a guide where my finger's sitting, to help hold all this together so it pushes nice and flat. Wouldn't hurt it to push on a little bit of an angle, because this sets lower than the stock pusher, but ultimately in the world of putting our gearbox in here, which is gonna be a tight fit, and of course like I said, I kind of have this screwed down, but here we go. So if we put the gearbox in about like so, so it's gonna be roughly about here, give or take, where the last tooth is gonna let go. Maybe a hair back, about like that. Obviously a bit higher, we want this flush. But so at this point in time, I'm kind of just gonna roughly mark out with my marker where the very front edge of the gearbox is gonna sit. And like I said, all this is rough, we'll have to play with it. Like I said, may have to slack the spring up a little bit, but that spring's pretty soft. As you can see, there's lots of meat in there. And all I did was, like I said, hook it under the XSW pusher, and then right over top of this boss here in the back, which of course when the shell closes, that's going to be okay. So, one of the things that we have to consider, and of course right now we have no battery tray or anything in it, but I like to check this as I go, is the blaster going to close up for me? We've eliminated some bosses and things like that, right? And so you can already see where the problem is going to be at this point in time, and that's going to be putting a battery back in it. So we may have to get a little creative as far as where we're going to place a battery in this thing. We may have to make a like a battery stock. We may have to make a battery stock for it back here. Because with the battery door on, which I've got right here, it will cover up the pusher kit nicely, but that's not going to leave us any room to put our battery in the hole. So, yeah, battery stock is going to be the way to go with this blaster, I think. And, boy, what a learning curve. Anyway, I'm going to keep on pushing and proceeding here and see if I can possibly make this work in any way, shape, or form, and I'll get back to you. Okay, I'm ready to attempt my first test. I made a epoxy putty block for the pusher, and I sank a post in there, a little metal rod, through this hole of it. And I left myself a little room here, and also right here, and I know it looks very stock, it may be very hard to see, but this post right at the end of my screwdriver, I made out of a piece of the old pusher Mac, and then and what it is just a guide to help hold my pusher arm in place. Okay, so we're going to put all that back together. I guess I should probably grease it up a little bit. So let me get a little bit of the white lithium here. And just lubricate things a little bit. This is not a comprehensive assembly or anything like that, but it can't hurt to put a little lube on here, just for the sake of everything sliding and functioning. And this is in fact just a test. Okay, and I've established which side of the gearbox, which I'll show you in just a second here, as soon as I put the screw in. Yeah, that's way too tight. Alright, that's about right. Let's put our spring on here. And that's about right. Okay, that should work. Alright, if you can see it, and hopefully you can, where I've got the spring in here, right at the tip of my finger, that's going to be the positive wire for the gearbox. So, I've got my jumper box hooked up here with my LiPo in it, and it's pretty charged. So we're going to see if we can get clipped onto the battery here. Again, the upper is the negative, so we're going to reach in there and do that number. We're going to turn the gearbox on, and we're just going to pulse it and see if we can make it go. So I'm just going to reach in here and touch it. So anyway, with any luck, here we go. Let's see what happens here. It worked. The spring came off. I don't know if I can hold it in place while I do this, and we had kind of discussed that earlier, but I'll see if I can hold the spring in place. Let's see if it'll go. Yeah. Somehow I have the feeling we're probably going to have to shift the gearbox forward just a little bit more. It's working, but I don't know if we're pushing far enough. So until I get the flywheel cage wired up to give it an official test like that, but you know, that's pretty cool. I'm pretty pleased with that, considering the gearbox isn't mounted or anything like that. Just to see it go and retract, you know, semi properly here is a good thing. That's a good sign. I'm trying to do it by hand. I see right there where it slips is nowhere near far enough, so it's got to come up here. So the gearbox is going to have to move forward another quarter inch or so. Fortunately, nothing in here is permanent, so we can play with it. Okay, so what we're going to do here is test this. Now, I've got the jumper box rigged up to the flywheel cage, which I already wired up. So we're going to turn that on and take the positive lead here and connect it to touch the pusher and see if we can make it push darts. So anyway, here we go. Let's see if we can make it go. Yup, it works. Okay, now we gotta make some room for some switches in here and wire up our battery stock, but I am super pleased with that, and it ripped. Okay, so we've got some stuff. So let's start up here with the flywheel cage. The little retainers that were on it right here at the tip of my screwdriver work just fine. And what I had to do, you can see right here around the motor tabs, I just sanded that in. These were kind of round. Sanded that in so it would go around the motor tabs and then screw the motors back down. So that worked out really well. Obviously, we went to Fang revamps and Inferno wheels. And to be honest, I'm not 100% certain how much of a performance boost we're going to get out of it. The real reason behind switching the motors this time is torque. We want really nice high torque to carry that load for full auto. So let's see if I can get my cage lined back up in there. Looks like it's in the ballpark. What are you doing, cage? Uh-oh. My little isolator came off of there. That's what happened. There we go. Alright, sweet. Oops. Dropping stuff. Nice. Alright. I'm going to screw down nice and tight here. Good. Good. And good. Okay, moving on because we've made quite a bit of progress and I don't want to leave you guys behind me. So we got our cage done. You can see it's wired. I just left these wires where I was testing it, just ridiculously long. Switch right here. Hopefully you can see that. I just took a strife switch plate and hot glued it in here and lined it up the way I want it, and took my micro switch and So that's nice and clicky. And we're going to have to figure out where we want to put the other switch, because space is going to be a premium if we're going to go with another big heavy one. So what we may do is go to one of the smaller, I've got these great small 10 amp micro switches, or sub micros, that would work for the pusher as well. So what we may do is actually use that, because it's a lot more space efficient than using the big one. But yeah, so switch plates in. Oh, other things. Here we go. Told you we were going to have to work on a battery stock. So I took the stock apart. There were 5 screws in it. They're the same length as the body screws. So I got that off, and you can see I've cleared out all of the material inside that. And so if we just stick this back together really quickly, you can see we can take our 950 out of Darts exclusive, and it drops in there quite a good ways. So shouldn't have any problems there. And I do have a shorter LiPo too if we need it. So you could also, if you needed to, and I still may, let's see if we can get it off, is take this post out at the back and the back wall off. Okay, because this is hollow in here as well, obviously, because it rides up and down. And then you would have much deeper battery tray. So I'll probably do that. Just go ahead and cut the whole back off of this. So when we throw the battery in, it'll ride all the way. We'll have all of this space here to put a battery. Which, like I said, again, if you look at that little 950, that's lots of room. So it's probably what we're going to do there. So I'm going to get that. Oh, one more thing. Sorry. On our big front muzzle top rail piece. Alright, we had to push our gearbox forward after we tried our first test. We went that way just a little bit. So what we had to do, the way all this sets, is hopefully it'll focus. There we go. You can see where I had to sand this down with my Dremel to clear the front edge of the gearbox. And so if I take and put that back in there on all those little posts, I'll lift it up here. See how tight that is on the gearbox there. So they're going to have to round that over just a little bit. But it's a good mark to hit if you're doing this type of prototyping, because I know, okay, that's exactly where my gearbox is going to set, is right up against this thing. The screw bosses in this thing are going to be sacrificed. We've already killed one that I know of, and maybe 2. So, but fortunately, there's a lot of screws in this blaster. I don't foresee any problem with that. And we're just about there. I'm going to get that other switch in there, and then finish up this battery stock, and we'll get it wired. Alright guys, as you can see, I've got it all buttoned back up now, and it's working great. The FRVs and the Inferno Flywheels gave us a little performance boost. We got a 115 average on the chrono, which is fine. I would have been perfectly okay with the 103 that we got stock, so long as it could handle our full auto rate of fire, which it does beautifully. Our stock mod actually worked really well for the battery. So let me see if I can get this apart for you here. There we go. See, the battery fits right into the stock. Set that down, and I take it into the stock. You can see basically I just hollowed the stock out all the way. This is already hollow, of course. Put it on the end. So when you're ready to go, plug your battery up. Feed it into the stock. Just kind of give everything a little wiggle, and boom, click it on. You're good to go. The only external modification at all to the blaster that there is this one little screw that I put in right at the tip of my finger to hold the post that the pusher now rides on. Because we removed the battery tray, if you take the battery door off of it, you have a great access port here to lubricate your gear mechanism for your pusher kit. So easy maintenance on this one without having to crack it open nearly as often. So that's super cool. So we got a little upgrade in flywheel performance. It's now full auto, shooting right at 10 darts a second. The LiPo fits in the stock. And I could not be happier with the way this blaster came out. So hopefully, if you guys are still with me and you've watched the whole deal here, you can be happy with the way that everything came out too, and figure it out for yourself. I apologize that not everything is set in stone as far as the exact position of the gearbox and, an official measurement and things. That's things you're going to have to play with when you're doing this type of prototyping. At this point, there's no drop-in kit for this blaster. I'm sure there will be in the future. So when you're doing this type of modification work on something that no one's ever done before, you've got to play with it a little bit and tweak and adjust things to make them work the way you want them to. But ultimately, yeah, I'm super happy with it. I hope you guys like it too. So if you haven't done it yet, subscribe, click that notifications button, as we always have great content coming up here in the the near future. Send us an email. Throw us a like. Please leave a comment. Fan mail address is in the description box below. And guys, until next time, this is Chris for Project Nerf saying, have a blast.